Live from downtown Detroit. Local 4 News at noon starts now.
In decision 2016, Hillary Clinton has delivered her first public remarks since conceding to the presidential race to Donald Trump. And former Detroit City Council President Charles Pugh addresses his victim and his family in court moments before he learns how long he'll spend in prison. But first, just moments ago, Hillary Clinton made her first remarks since Donald Trump was elected president after securing a major upset victory. She spoke in front of a crowd of her supporters in New York City. Listen.
I feel pride and gratitude for this wonderful campaign that we built together. This vast, diverse, creative, unruly, energized campaign. You represent the best of America, and being your candidate has been one of the greatest honors of my life.
And her speech comes after a pretty wild 24 hours that saw most battleground states won by Donald Trump. Edward Lawrence has the very latest reaction to Trump's historic victory.
Donald Trump celebrated his victory early this morning in New York, saying he will be the president for all Americans.
For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
He becomes the first person elected president who never served political office or in the military. Trump says Hillary Clinton called him.
She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign.
This morning, Clinton made her first public statement.
I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans. This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, and I'm sorry that we did not win this election.
The House Speaker Paul Ryan, who never campaigned for Trump, is now singing his praises.
I think what Donald Trump just pulled off is an enormous political feat. It's an enormous feat in that he heard those voices that were out there that other people weren't hearing.
As Trump tries to heal the country, protests erupted in several cities. People took to the streets in Portland, Oregon. Trump tapped into the anger voters feel about the direction of the country. Now it's his challenge to lead a very divided nation. The results show Donald Trump overperformed polls in rural America. Also, the block of voters that turned out for President Obama in 2012 did not mobilize for Hillary Clinton, and that led to victory for the president-elect. Edward Lawrence, NBC News, Washington.
U.S. stocks evening out this afternoon after the markets plunged during Donald Trump's upset win over Hillary Clinton. The Dow Jones tumbled as much as 800 points last night in futures trading, but has since rebounded. Now, experts say investors seem to be eased by Trump's victory speech, but it's still unclear what he has planned for the country and how it will affect the markets. And here locally, it took a while to count the Detroit vote, but in the end, Donald Trump carried Michigan. It was a very close race, with Trump winning by only about 13,000 votes, which was less than half a percentage point. We also know the regional authority transit millage has failed, that race not being called until this morning because officials were waiting for the full vote coming out of Detroit. Local 4's Guy Gordon is joining us live now this afternoon. And Guy, do we know why the vote in Detroit here took so long to be counted?
Well, yeah, we do, Everett. We should point out, it wasn't just RTA. The nation was waiting for Detroit because they wanted to see which way Michigan was going to go as well. And Detroit was a pivotal and critical area to determine that. So here is what happened, why there was a delay until this morning. Here's the ballot. I got a sample for you. For those of you that already voted in Detroit, you already know this. It was front and back and then another page. So with absentee ballots, those have to be manually tabulated. So those 2 pages have to be inserted. Now, absentee ballots were down about 30%. We can take a look at the tabulation centers as they were last night, both at Cobo and here at the Election Central. But those absentee ballots have to be manually fed into a tabulator. And instead of 1 page, they had to feed 2 pages. So instead of a 56,000 ballot count, it was 112,000 pages that had to be fed in by 600 campaign workers. That doubled their workload and it slowed things down, and old hardware didn't help.
They're old. We were hopeful that we would have new ones for this particular election, but we couldn't get it done via the state. They they didn't have the money, just like any other old product. They're not as, they're, you know, they jam up and they're slower to run and they get stuck and we have to unstick them.
Now, Janice Winfrey says she's very proud of her team. The Cobo team, where all of this absentee vote tabulations were going on, they did not leave until this morning. They stayed here overnight. I can tell you Daniel Baxter, the head of elections, he is still here. He's been here since 5 o'clock in the morning yesterday. So again, she says she's proud of her team, and to be fair to her and her team, Kent County had problems. The city of Wyoming, which is just outside Grand Rapids, they had problems. Ann Arbor was late as well. We were still waiting for full results from them at about 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. last night. So late results, especially from urban areas that saw higher than normal turnout. In this case, it was the AV votes in Detroit that clogged things up. We'll take a closer look at this coming up tonight on Local 4 News at 5 and 6. Until then, Evrod, back to you.
All righty. Thank you, Guy, for the update there. Of course, our coverage continues with Paula Tutman, who is exploring how last night's results show a big divide across the country and what needs to be done for the healing to begin.
Today, two different sides of the electorate. We have those people who are so frustrated they voted for Donald Trump and they are exhilarated that he won the election, and those who are very frustrated that he won and today are very much afraid of what that presidency might look like to them. How can two different groups of people living so closely together have such two very different points of view? We'll explore it today at 4 on First at 4.
We'll definitely be tuning in for that. Paula, thank you. For the results on every local race in our area, just go to the homepage of our website. That is clickondetroit.com. Look for the local election results tab on our special coverage box. In other news, here at home, after accepting a plea agreement from former Detroit City Council President Charles Pugh, will spend at least the next 5.5 years in prison. Local 4's Lauren Podell joining us live now this afternoon. And Lauren, I understand that Pugh addressed the court today before he was sentenced. What did he have to say?
He certainly did. Besides a slew of apologies, Evrod, Pugh also told the judge and the courtroom today he plans to use his time in prison wisely. Number one, trying to become a better man, grow in character, and grow in Christ. And while Pugh remained abnormally positive throughout this difficult court case and sentencing, at least today, the judge and the victim's mother had harsher words for him.
I want to start out by apologizing to Austin and his family for violating their trust.
Former City Council President Charles Pugh not only apologized to the victim, Austin Williams, in court, but to his own family, the school system, and to a city that trusted him.
I know I let down a lot of people.
After admitting to engaging in sexually inappropriate behavior with a 14-year-old, ultimately pleading guilty to third-degree criminal sexual conduct, today Pugh stood before Judge Thomas Cameron and was sentenced to 5.5 to 15 years in prison, the judge calling his actions reprehensible.
When there was a case of a public official who abused their position of trust, or someone who committed sexual assault on a minor, you or your station was there to report on it. What the public didn't know, at the same time you were reporting on these offenses and violations of the public trust, you were committing these same crimes yourself.
While we heard from the victim during the last court appearance, prosecutor Danielle Bennett read a statement from Austin's mother, a statement that referred to Pugh as a monster.
Mr. Pugh wasn't the decent human being I thought him to be. Mr. Pugh was the monster I warned my children against.
Charles Pugh will spend at least 5.5 years in prison if and or when he is released after those 15 years. Some of the guidelines to his sentencing include no contact with minors, no contact with Austin Williams, the victim in this case, and he will have to register as a lifelong sex offender. Reporting live outside of Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, Lauren Podell, Local 4 News.
All righty, Lauren, thank you. Well, it was sort of a chilly start to the day as we take a live look across Metro Detroit. Brandon, hopefully we're going to warm up at some point today.
Well, as you look up, things are looking up. We've got some sun out there. The wind makes it certainly feel colder, but we're trying to balance that with a little sunshine. And you can see the winds right now coming out of the northwest, anywhere between 5 and 15 miles an hour, straight sustained winds, gusting a little bit stronger. 50 degrees at Metro, 50 Monroe, 50 in Adrian, but closer to those north winds and coming off of the big lake, still in the 40s in our north zone and parts of the area. We have a temperature difference of about 5 to 10 degrees colder at the noon hour on your Wednesday than it was 24 hours ago. So cool air in place, at least for now. We're 50 degrees now, a mix of sun and clouds on the breezy side. Those northwest winds 7 to 17, occasionally gusting 20 to 25 miles an hour, and really not going too much farther as far as the warm-up goes. Cold front has come through, but we do have warmer air coming your way, at least temporarily, and we'll talk about that in the big 7-day forecast coming up.
Alrighty, Brandon, we'll see you then. Still ahead right here on Local 4 News at noon. New information in the Australia theme park accident that killed 4 people. We'll tell you what park officials are doing to the ride to make sure that this tragedy never happens again. But first, a mother and daughter recovering after a terrifying accident that happened while heading to school. What police are saying about the investigation next.
If you're in a
Welcome back. A walk to school turns terrifying for a mom and her daughter in Novi. It was around 7:30 this morning. The pair were walking on Glenwood Drive near 11 Mile and Wixom Roads, and they were properly crossing a crosswalk when a car made a turn, slamming right into the two. Both had to be taken to the hospital, but thankfully they are expected to be okay. Police continue to investigate. And an investigation continues after bullets fly at a California polling station. Police say that the gunman, now dead, after he killed a man and injured 2 women near Los Angeles. Both women are in critical condition. One of the women was shot in the face, the other one in the torso. Authorities say that the 45-year-old shooter was on a cocaine binge at the time of that attack. And in Australia now, the water ride that killed 4 people will be torn down as the entire theme park is under review. The 2 men and 2 women were killed last month after the ride that they were on overturned and their raft that they were on had them trapped. The CEO of the theme park saying tearing it down was the only appropriate option following that incident. The park is still closed and will not reopen until a full independent safety review has happened.
New at noon.
Coming up, Detroit business leaders meeting and eating with families all across the area. How the Motor City's big Thanksgiving Day parade came to be. We'll have that for you coming up. Brandon?
The coldest air still bottled up north, so we're doing okay, even though it feels a little bit chilly outside now. We're going to warm things up briefly and go on a bit of a roller coaster ride in your 7-day coming up.
A Michigan State professor with an unusual university study, the big-time money of pimps working online.
A third of them made over $100,000 a year.
Prostitution is moving off the streets and onto our smartphones, tablets, and laptops, and it's making it tougher for police to investigate.
They became more deceptive in how they advertised. They would change the words that they would use so that law enforcement wouldn't identify what it was they were selling.
School's in session, and this professor says local families have a lot to learn about how pimps lure in young girls and customers. The Defenders tonight at 11.
I'm Gene.